For Pacifica Radio, I'm Scott Baba. A Palestinian health official said yesterday that at least 21 people were killed in an Israeli strike on a camp housing displaced people in Gaza. Atif Al-Hout, the director of Nasser Hospital in the southern city of Khan Yunis, said 28 people were wounded. The Israeli military said it struck senior Hamas militants. The strike hit in the Mawasi area, a sprawling coastal camp housing hundreds of thousands of displaced people. It came after Israeli forces struck targets in other areas of the Palestinian enclave. Earlier strikes on central Gaza killed 8 people, including 4 children. Meanwhile, Amnesty International accused Israel of committing genocide in the Gaza Strip during its war with Hamas, saying the country has sought to deliberately destroy Palestinians by mounting deadly attacks, demolishing vital infrastructure, and preventing the delivery of humanitarian aid. This is Agnes Kalamar, the Secretary General of Amnesty International.
Palestinians have been bombed, starved, repeatedly displaced. Israel's actions have wiped out entire multi-generational families. They have destroyed Palestinian homes and livelihood, wreaked a dreadful havoc on their infrastructure and on their ties to the land. Israel military has leveled entire city. It has pulverized civilian objects, agricultural areas, cultural and religious sites. It has rendered great areas of Gaza simply uninhabitable. Babies are born into unsafe, unsanitary conditions. Children are decimated by airstrikes.
Amnesty International, one of the world's leading human rights groups, said in its report released today that such actions could not be justified by Hamas's October 7th attack onto Israel, which ignited the war, or the presence of militants in civilian areas. Amnesty called on the United States and other allies of Israel to halt arms shipments, saying they could be complicit in genocide. Israel adamantly rejected the allegations, calling Amnesty a, quote, deplorable and fanatical organization. South Korea's president has replaced his defense minister as opposition parties move to impeach both men over the shocking but short imposition of martial law that brought armed troops into Seoul's streets. Chris Gilbert reports.
The Defense Secretary, Kim Yong-hyun, is reportedly the only member of cabinet, apart from the president, who knew about Yoon's plan to decree martial law this week, and is reportedly the one who proposed it to him. His resignation is another win for protesters and lawmakers who oppose the move, which was quickly shot down by Parliament just after Yoon's surprise announcement on Tuesday. Protesters have also been calling for the resignation of the president. The opposition party has filed a motion to impeach Yoon Suk-yeol, saying his actions were unconstitutional and treasonous. His own party, the People Power Party, is also distancing itself. Its leader, Han Dong-hoon, says those responsible for the plan must be held to account, and he is requesting Yoon Suk-yeol defect from the party.
And that was Chris Gilbert reporting. The Supreme Court seems likely to uphold Tennessee's ban on medical treatments for transgender minors after hearing arguments on the case yesterday. Sagar Magani reports.
The issue is whether the law violates the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause, since the statute bans puberty blockers and hormone treatments for those minors, but allows them to be used for other purposes. Chief Justice John Roberts says the Constitution leaves the question of regulating medical procedures to lawmakers.
Rather than to 9 people, none of whom is a doctor.
And Justice Brett Kavanaugh joined other conservatives in saying while there are strong arguments on each side,
why isn't it best to leave it to the democratic process?
The court's liberals disagreed.
When you're 1% of the population or less, very hard to see how the democratic process is going to protect you.
Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Blacks were a much larger part of the population, and it didn't protect them.
The Biden administration argues a ruling in favor of Tennessee could be used to justify nationwide restrictions on transgender care for minors. Sagar Magani, Washington.
President-elect Donald Trump is bringing Peter Navarro back to the White House for his second administration. Trump announced yesterday on Truth Social that Navarro will serve as a senior counselor for trade and manufacturing. He was a trade advisor in Trump's first term. Navarro served 4 months in prison after being held in contempt of Congress for defying a subpoena from the House committee that investigated the January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Trump also chose former Representative Billy Long of Missouri as IRS Commissioner, former Senator Kelly Loeffler as Administrator of the Small Business Administration, Daniel Driscoll as Army Secretary, Jared Isaacman as NASA Administrator, and Adam Bowler as Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs. I'm Scott Baba for Pacifica Radio.